and then you have to do it again, there comes a point where there's no more air, and you don't have any options. So there's so many things to think about that we ought to be real happy that these guys pay attention.
Yeah, they're just like any other machine. I mean, when you're going out to cut shoe, everywhere you're doing your outboard motor, it's just still a machine and everything, the rudder might, hydraulics and rudder might fail, we got the engine might, blow a cylinder ahead or head gasket, because, like I say, it's all, but they usually have a backup system, to the steering, or actually they do have two motors. But I mean, it's not uncommon. I've lost complete steering, we lost the main engine.
I had a 42-foot load out here inbound, and I just been going to see, the ship vibrates. Anyway, the engine shut down. I said, Captain, what's wrong with the engine? Oh, nothing. You know. Anyway, I drink that's what it is. Stuff happens.
Well, any other?
I'm assuming you're going to postpone your shipwreck.
I'll postpone my shipwreck thing. Let everyone else stay here and hear about the Mary singing. But anyway.
Okay, well,
The captain announced his determination to enter the bay in any handling. Now, we're in a sailing ship in 1834. As our little schooner reached the bar, a rough sea broke on her and a heavy swell threw her from the channel and she became unmanageable. The consequence was that she struck heavily on the bar about 5 feet of water where she remained fast aground. We had taken the precaution to shut and fasten the cabin door. Another heavy sea struck her and completely washed her decks. Those upon deck only saving themselves by clinging desperately to the ropes. This roll lifted the vessel into the shallow water where she was permanently fixed. The doors were then opened and the passengers within would imagine that we had all been swept overboard, congratulated us on our escape, and especially Mrs. Lynn, Mrs. Mr. Lynn writing this, in that she had not been left a young widow. Our staunch craft withstood the warfare of the elements wonderfully well, and
everybody's interest. Although the Historical Association, is founded, is actually the community organization because you all are part of it. And that's why, we need you here, we need your input, we need your cooperation, and this may be a good way in order to voice that. And with that, I don't think I have to say anything more, except that I think Betty has some detail. Do you want to say about facilities and stuff? Beverly's going to say it.
That's hard. I just want to say there's a bathroom off the living room. It's the last building. The other doors are locked, and you figure that out.
No, don't start too late.
And I think all of you know that the drinks are in the refrigerator. There's popcorn up there, and we want to welcome you. And if you didn't get one of my handouts, raise your hand and I'll get you one.
I don't think we have any. I don't know if anybody.
Well, I passed out. If Beverly gives you any time off, we have all of the things that we sell to make money to help this thing along. And you're welcome to look at them and peruse them and see what you like. This painting is by Clint Reed, and we're selling chances on it. It's a lovely painting,
And very historical. Okay.
very historical. I have nothing else to
Is
say.
that it? Okay.
Beverly.
Beverly Charles is our fearless leader, and she is going to take over from here. Okay, Beverly?
And what we want to do, first of all, is to, and I'm sure there are overlap because many of you probably represent several of these organizations. But I thought a good starting point would be to see who's here from these organizations. And as you say your name, if you would also share with us how long you have been a part of the Port Aransas community. How long, what's your history in Port Aransas full time? So, do we have someone from Rotary? From the Marlin Booster Club. From the PTO. Volleyball Association. Church of Christ. Island Worship. Boatman. I know we have Boatman. And Michael, you want to just introduce yourself and how long you've been a full-timer here?
Oh, okay, I'm Michael Medlini, and I've been in boating for several years. I've got a charter boat operation here in Port Aransas as well. Here to understand what's going on.
And how many years have you been in Port A?
Five.
Five, okay. And I think we just had another boatman walk in.
Yep.
Yep.
Dave Sullivan,
And Dave, how long in Port A as a
lived
full-timer?
Port A 3 years, fished here for 40.
Okay, for 40. Art, I saw Tony.
Yeah. I guess I wear a couple of hats. So, Tony Amos. I run the Animal Rehabilitation Keep and do a number of things in trying to keep track of how things change on this island. I've been here for 30 years. 31 years. 31 years.
31, okay.
Yeah.
And then probably UTMSI is his.
Yeah, but I'm sure you should find somebody else as well from UTMSI.
We have another one else. Pat. Computer Center, I know, yes. Krista?
Kristen Allen, and just since June. Full time.
3/4 of a year. Okay, jumping right in. Okay. Okay, and then Bruce?
It's Kristen with an IN. It's
Okay. And Bruce, did you say 5? And Girl Scouts, I saw Maryland.
I can. I can do that.
And how many years, Maryland, have you been here?
She's gonna tell them.
70s maybe.
Okay. So 30 plus.
Yeah.
Marilyn was sharing her history when she walked in saying, I used to cook for the Presbyterian church camp back there in that kitchen. The Presbyterian camp. PA Soccer League, who runs the soccer league? Trinity by the Sea. First Baptist, Friends of the Library. Boy Scouts. Garden Club, I know Kathy. And Kathy, I'm assuming you've been here the same amount of time as this. 5 years. Okay. Island in the Sun. Betty. And Betty, how many years have you been in Port A?
Let's see, from the first grade to freshman in high school, how long is that?
8?
9 years.
Okay. Fire Auxiliary?
Right here.
Patsy.
Brown, summer.
And how long in Port A, Patsy?
37 years.
Wow. I think you might get the award so far.
Oh, come on now.
Oh, no, you got Marcy. How could I say that when Marcy's right in front of me? VFW. Anybody? Community Presbyterian. Pray a bunch. Okay, we have Sharon. And we have
Arlene,
John.
Harry and Joan. Okay, I want one of them for the garden.
They're all garbage. And Steve. We have Steve. Me. You. Me and you.
Oh, yeah, and Marilyn. And Beverly. There are a bunch of us. How many years, Sharon?
Oh, 12.
12, and Arlene?
Oh, gosh, I taught school here from 58 to 67, and I've been coming back to visit ever since. I would say the last 6 winters I've been here.
So 15
I'm
plus.
coming in and out.
Right. And John?
13,
And Harry?
11.
That, Joan, that must mean 11 for you. And Steve?
3.
And Marilyn, we know that's 30 plus. And then Larry and I have been here 9. PAYC? EMS Auxiliary? PAPHA, they're a bunch here. So if I haven't gotten your name somewhere else, Nancy? Nancy, you want to say how many years?
8, 10, something like
8 to 10.
that. Carol lived it.
Carol is there. And Carol, how many years?
It's hard to call. I've been here permanently 18, but we built our house in 55, so that's 52 years.
And Art Center? Arlene? And St. Joe's? Marcy?
75 years.
Oh, I think that deserves a round of applause. Standing ovation.
And Mary?
And Mary. And how many years, Mary?
A month less than Kristen.
A month less than Kristen, okay.
I'm with Marcy, so it doesn't matter.
That one just
Pretty good.
And then KHAB? Joan and Harry?
We're here for a big house, too. We're wearing all
And Carol and Arlene, right?
No, I don't know.
And Pam, somewhere you're in here.
I know a lot of them.
And how many, I'm just gonna, then I think I'll put you right here. How many years?
29.
29. And Rick?
I'm boatman in PAPHA, and I've been here 26 years.
Well, did I miss anybody? Do we have everybody that? And thank you so much for taking an evening and spending it here with folks from PAPHA who want to find out what you think about having a historical museum. So you can tell there's a lot of history in this room. And I find that one of the stories that always goes along with the introduction is very similar to what Dave Sullivan said, and that is, well, I've only been here so many years full-time, but I've been coming here 40 or 50 or my whole life, because that's the kind of attachment Port Aransas invites. And I think part of preserving the history is keeping that sense of community and pride and being a part of it intact. So, Betty and Nancy, Betty Bundy and Nancy Phillips, are going to share just a little bit about the process that has led us to this event this evening, because Betty is the grants chairman for PAPHA and Nancy is the museum chair for PAPHA. So they are going to take a few minutes to tell you about what led us here.
Actually, most of it is, that I can tell you, is on handout that I gave you. So you can save a lot of time listening to me and just read the handout. But we are working now with Mr. David Morrow, who is from
Speak up.
Speak up, louder, oh goodness. Who is from Southwest Museum Services. And they're from Houston.
Yes.
And they have done museums, wonderful museums all over the country. They've worked in the Museum of Science and History in Corpus, and I've been in 2 or 3 museums, the Holocaust Museum in Dallas, and they have museums outside of the country, and we're working closely with him to make plans for how we will use the stories that have come out of the history of Port Aransas through its organizations and the way they started and developed and made history here. And that's about all I can tell you. I try to get money, but I'm not the only one that tries to get money. We have help from many places. And one thing I do want to say is on my handout on the budget page, there's an error. It says $1,600 for Mr. Lara to move the house. That's supposed to be $16,000.
No, such a bargain.
The house will be moved in 2 pieces and put on the lot in front of the community center. There is a diagram there done by the garden club which shows the landscaping that they're planning to do around it. And we hope soon to have a real rendering of what the end result will look like. And also, one thing that I hadn't mentioned, just this last 2 weeks, we received from the Preservation Central in Austin that did our historical survey of the community, the books of the survey. Their pictures, we got much more than just these 2 books, but this lists all of the historical houses that they designated within a certain area. There are more. If any of you live in a historic house that's over 50 years old and it's not in that list, please tell us and we'll get it added in the addendum.
I have nothing better.
Well, Nancy has said that she will be our museum person in charge.
Till we get someone qualified.
No, she's more qualified than all the rest of us. She's been on museum boards, and she's going to run the museum when we can get it over there and get put back together again and endorse it.
Anybody have any questions of Betty or John or Nancy?
I'm going to ask the 3 of you, if you will, to join this table and help in this brainstorming group.
You should have a design or agenda in front of you that has outcome and objectives. Tonight, we're here, and hopefully when we leave here at 9 o'clock, we will have collected your ideas and your suggestions as to what the future museum should collect and what it should do and how it should operate. And so what we want to do as a group is to give input to the museum's draft mission, and then to identify museum goals, museum markets and marketing ideas, museum themes, expenses and funding options, roles and responsibilities of different community groups, and then identify what some next steps would be. And I'm a great collector of quotes, so I don't think a meeting should start without a quote, and I chose 2 for tonight. Wherever men have lived, there is a story to be told, and it depends chiefly on the storyteller or the historian whether that is interesting or not. Thoreau. And old events have modern meaning. James Russell Lowell. So tonight, we want you to take a look at this draft mission, and the objectives and outcome for this meeting came out of the letter that John Fusick sent to each of the community organizations inviting them to send a representative to tonight's meeting. And so John had said what he saw as the mission would be to preserve the records, stories, and accomplishments of Port Aransas so that those who live and visit here can appreciate the unique and enduring character of Port Aransas in the context of its history. Now, what we want you to do is to put that into what it would look like, feel like, be like to be in a place that was doing that. So what I've done is put a bunch of Post-it notes, and so the first one we're going to use is that aqua one, that sort of sea colored blue one. And I'd like for you to take a moment and think about that draft mission statement. And if you were king or queen of the world and you could create a museum that had that mission, what would be some of the things we would see and hear and experience in that kind of museum? And if you'll just take a moment and jot down your thoughts on that blue sheet of paper. your individual thoughts about what we would see, hear, and experience in a museum that was doing that. Does anyone need a pen or a pencil? In a museum that was doing that.
Is there a
Yes, I think it should.
They're getting rowdy at that table.
Are they? They're having too much fun?
I don't have that much. Well, but let me.
So, Beverly, again, what are the basic things we do on the blue piece of paper?
You're identifying the things you would want to see, hear, and experience in a museum that had that as their mission.
You know what you're getting ready to say, I know. So by the time I need it, the video is ready.
And if you will notice, you have a roll of chart paper on your table and a bunch of markers. And if at each table, one person would identify themselves as a reporter and one person be the reporter so that they're sharing out with the rest of us.
Must be Beverly.
Well, because I'm recording
She's the
and I have to
camera
leave.
She's the camera crew.
Okay.
So if the reporter will write on the top of one of those sheets of paper, mission, and then we'll know what you're doing. Mission.
I'm looking at it from the same time to see what's there.
We're gonna need someone to say that.
I do, look at that, yeah, that's, look at the awards we just got. Oh, no,
You're doing it, it never works.
no. Yeah.
Okay, and the way I think it would be the most efficient to share out is if you'll just start with someone and go around the circle sharing out one thing off your own individual paper, and then if at your table, and then if all of yours haven't been mentioned by the time you've gone around the circle once, then do another round. And the reporter will be writing them down, and then hopefully we'll have a reporter. So one time around, sharing one thing from your list.
What do you want to do in a quarter?
Yes.
We'll start with big letters.
Big marker letters. mission at the top.
What you want to see here, what would you want to see? Something to the list.
Anything? Okay, well, I put a chronological picture history with text on the stairways.
Okay, that's a very, okay. Yes. So that's.
Yeah, I know.
Picture history. With text and audio there.
I keep on with this theme, the difference between this exercise and what we're going to do.
There may be some, I mean, we may see that.
Ready to know?
All right.
She said you do one, and then it does one, and then we go around.
Items from our past displayed on the Horizon Tree. We need to do is collect as many or as much overlooked artifacts as possible. Items of our past handmade visual furniture of the tree. No top storage, house, dog, shit, there's probably should be on our dad's yeah. Big toys handmade, my dad's boat, I wish we would use something like that. Family trees, restoring Spanish floors. It's kind of see on our
I'd like to see it.
Families and stuff.
Yeah, there was a camp.
Short vignettes. Chronological history. With focus on some of the pivotal moments. Town changed names. We had a change the whole collection. So people can kind of focus on that. So we started, we could even, I mean, this is going too far back, but in my head, we go back 4,500 years to when the island was formed. When it was nothing but a series of sandbars. Drifted out and it was beginning to become an island. So, and that kind of set a history because it's difficult to place to live. So these pivotal moments, these events, quarter inches to focus, yeah, focus on those moments.
And then it has a real large master bath and really.
Have you been around your circle at least once?
I would like to see.
But he's got to include
That's dispute for 4,500 years.
Well, that's the best geological timing I've been able to get the experts to come forth with. And that the age of the offshore reef that washes up to 6,000 years. There was an 8,000.
Comes in,
And then I
they see
think,
something different.
Changing.
I would like to see.
Changing.
In the general,
Yeah, because it's a lot of the same people.
An orientation, some kind of orientation. Where everybody's in all town with these guys and kind of an walking tour. Sort of a map of it. some kind of presentation. This is Old Town, and here's how you get to this house or that house or the other. So orient us as a walking to become, more than that. And an invitation to go walk and sign up for a tour, that kind of thing. A little bit. And kind of an invitation to walk.
We were walking around
Just immerse them in a glass case.
Good facilitation, David, good facilitation.
Because if somebody already listening, they move
should have two basic things. First, it should have the items of interest on display, and secondly, it should have an archive collection of dialogue records, a library, and reading rooms. So there's two different things. One is like a traditional museum where people go and look at all the papers. The other is people who want to really study and then look at it. So those are two basic things.
With the organizations that I thought were different things well, that's interesting, but I think
Back here was from our past out there in there.
Mine's short, to recognize the pioneers.
well, you can't be, we haven't, what do you put that envelope line?
There's all kinds of ways to do that. I was thinking during the broader context, there's all kinds of ways of recognizing people and pioneers, photos, and more personal things about individuals and here.
Hear about
Stop, please. And if you haven't gotten
so it all works
Betty Bundy's doing the Girl Scouts.
Girl Scout style.
We need to try that.
When,
Instead of a gun.
if you haven't gotten every single thing recorded, would you take those blue Post-it notes and put them on the bottom of your sheet? Put all of the blue Post-it notes on the bottom of the sheet.
Yeah, well, she said if we had jotted on here, I think we're done.
The definition of mission is really purpose, why something exists. And so keeping in mind the purpose or why this museum is going to exist, I would just like whoever's the reporter at each of the tables to stand up and share out a couple of the things that you wrote down that bring that mission to life, that bring that purpose to life. And we want to start right here, this table?
Anybody want to Okay. She's got it facing her. Okay,
I read the first one we wrote.
Yeah, chronological picture history with text and audio narratives. And actually, everything that we put in fits into preserved record stories, accomplishments. That's pretty good.
Say that, read the first one again.
Chronological picture history with text and audio narratives.
Okay. A sample off of yours back here, Sharon.
A walk-through room or wall with earliest port aid with developments by the decade.
Have archives, but also have interactive exhibits and video presentations.
Mary, did you say archives?
Yes.
Okay. Exhibits to recognize pioneers, town pioneers.
And our museum expert, and he teased me about calling him an expert last week when I met him for the first time. You'll have to tell him what you said an expert is.
Oh, well, an expert is, an X, you know, is a has-been, and a spurt is a little drip. So that may be the best definition.
But he is our expert, and when we started doing this, he said, is this going to overlap with the themes? And definitely, I think it is, not only with the themes, but also with the goals. So I want you to keep this paper where you can see it. And then what I want us to do with your pink Post-it note is, as an individual, if you could choose a single goal to bring this mission into being, a single goal that would bring this mission into being, what would that goal be for this museum? You can only have one goal that will bring this mission into being. So on that pink Post-it note, what would your goal be? You've said what you want to see, hear, and experience in that museum. And you need a goal to make that happen. What would that singular goal be? Bless you. Yours is almost like hers. We know we're the people who are all they're thinking about is money. Gotta have it though.
Set the goal and then we'll find the money.
Okay, we're going to record a little differently this time, but if the recorder will take one of those white sheets of paper and at the top write goals, and then just have everybody put their Post-it note on that sheet. Just have everybody put that pink Post-it note on the sheet.
Stick it on your. What will we do without cooling technology?
Thank goodness for 3M.
Yeah.
And what I'd like to do is just starting this way and going in reverse here, have the recorder read out the goals from each table. So Mary?
All of them?
Yes, all of them.
Okay. To recognize the fishing heritage of our ancestors and pioneers on the island. To document how human development of the town has impacted the natural history. That's good. To inspire the entire community to support the museum. Book written about the first old families who settled Mustang Island, involved the entire town in the process, get the town aboard.
The board, get the town board. Okay, back here.
Create an environment that causes recurring visits. Get large dollar contributions, i.e. corporate. Establish an endowment fund of $2.5 million. Share the experience of our predecessors and see how island life has progressed or evolved.
Karen.
Lottery. Raise enough money to develop a museum with the most up-to-date equipment and materials. Have a museum that when people leave, they have a lasting memory of the history of Port A. Careful supervision and balanced development. Grant dollars to make it come true.
Marilyn?
We have request items from residents, pictures, documents, etc. Money.
Louder.
Request items from residents, pictures, documents, etc. Money to obtain professional consultation to make this the best little museum in South Texas. Large endowment fund and an archivist.
A variety of goals. If you, at your table, were prioritizing the goals just on your list, take a moment to have a conversation about what has to come first on your list. And put those peak notes in the order that your group thinks they have to be.
Chronologically or in order of importance?
In order, in your group's opinion about the order of importance. The order of importance. Prioritize your list of goals.
I'd say put me down at 5.
Yeah, probably really would.
So it's like large
That's they sort of go together. This is to feed the development.
There were two of those.
Not close to that. Share the experience of fishing heritage of our ancestors. Their ego.
These all three.
Goals are more substantive type of things to accomplish.
I think they all did. You could make a sense that you.
They highlight tie buckles, fishing boats. And I think we'll be comfortable to, I guess.
It seems like we don't have sufficient. He knows that we didn't really want to, everybody on the answers have all the ideas. They can write on them, goals.
What was that cost?
Stop, please.
We are such a
Stop, please. They say if you say anything in your normal tone of voice 3 times, people will hear it, but I don't know if I really believe that either. But I think everybody has a prioritized list. And so what we want to look at next on your agenda are markets and marketing ideas. I was privileged to get to hear a consultant that Gary Mazorski brought in to talk to the Parks and Rec group a few weeks ago. And Rick, help me with her name because you were there too. Karen Schraub. Karen Schraub.
Schraub or Schrag.
And she is from a nature center in near Minneapolis. Actually, it's in the heart of Minneapolis, St. Paul area. And it's an urban area, and her nature center is right in the middle of the city. She said it was 1 mile from Mall of the Americas and 3 miles from the airport. So she said that when they started talking about who was their market, it raised some really interesting discussion. And so what I want us to think about for a minute is, and before we write anything down, who do you think the market is for this Port Aransas Historical Museum? Who are we attracting? Who are we trying to have a museum for? Anybody? School
From a
children?
funding
School children?
Two different things entirely. Who are we attracting here? And who we'd like to attract.
Okay, so I'm hearing school children who we would like to attract versus who we are
Tourists.
attracting.
Our
Tourists,
tourists.
visitors,
I think new residents.
new residents,
Investors,
investors.
I'll get facetious on the term, but, you know, foundations, fundraising, everybody has money thing on the table.
Well, the thing that I found that she said that was so
Winter Texas tourists.
enlightening to me, because I hadn't really thought about this, is that she really pushed that the market would be the children, the schools. And she said that is because she realized that in the urban area in which they live, they needed to develop a land ethic in their school children, because the nature preserve would not last unless the generations coming up had a land ethic. And that made me start thinking that maybe we need a historical ethic, and that maybe what we're really trying to do is ensure that the history of this town isn't lost. And so it's not to negate the other markets, and she was very clear about that. It's not to say we don't want to have something for tourists, or we don't want to have something for visitors, because we do. But she said what you're really doing when you have a public institution like that is trying to develop some kind of ethic. And I think that's an interesting way to approach this. So right now in your groups, and you have a lime green, which is hard to tell the difference between lime green and yellow, but you have a lime green post-it. And what I'd like for you to do is to
They all look the same.
think of a market and some way that you would get that market to this museum. Think of a market that you would want to attract, and then something you would do that would bring them here. And if you'll just write that on your lime green poster, a market you want to attract, and something you would do to get them to that museum.
Beverly,
Yes.
when you're saying market, you're thinking of people that are coming as visitors and going through the museum, not necessarily people who would participate in it, but people who come to see it as...
An attraction, yes.
Okay.
Right, and who not only just come once, but maybe come over and over. What? An idea, Larry and I were just at the Arboretum in Houston on Saturday, and I was amazed at how many children's birthday parties were going on in meeting rooms there, and how they had tour guides there to take them on trails, etc. So that's a market, birthday parties for children. That's thinking, you know, sort of outside the box about what this museum could do.
School group.
Yes.
I like story.
And electronic stuff.
Local school, into different places. I was in your school system long enough to be able to answer that. From what I can tell, they do a good job of things, technology and things, related to schools. But as far as field trips that they do.
Well, you said the museums.
visitors to tourism visitors
To go to school, and so that.
Man, I would say this is a brilliant group. I don't even have to say, please put marketing at the top of your page anymore. It's already done and the sticky notes are on there. So let's start there, Kristen, with your table. What are your markets and some marketing ideas?
Rotating community.
Just one moment, I think that's true.
Rotating community.
Okay, Kristen's got our attention.
Displays and features. Tourist, winter Texans, and summer visitors. Tourists work with the chamber to bring in tourists and use signage to bring in locals. Sport fishermen, exhibits of gear, photos, old and recent, and Civil War buffs. Tourists, including summer, winter, Corpus Christi, residents, and kids, using exhibits that interest and change.
Families, and then children, story hours, tours with guides for special holidays, art shows of children's work, marketing school groups, have lesson plans or goals centering on history, visitors, distribute flyers to the hotels, advertise, American Volksmarks Association, Winter Texans, major state newspapers in Canada, sportsmen, fishermen, advertise in sports magazines, have public relations ads in papers and magazines, TV, internet.
Sounds like there's a marketing person over there. Okay.
Okay, local people, grassroots involved in school projects, other organizations, etc. being involved. Attract histories of origin, original families, South Jetty Chamber of Commerce. Story letters, changing exhibits to draw return visitors to families, visitors to city, newspaper, and tourist guides. AAA, coupons, story and magazines, and education and history displays.
Great.
Education.
Yeah, and history displays, webpage.
Market as families, attract a range of themes and exhibits for a range of interests. Tourists and visitors, integrated program with tourism destinations here. Families with children interested in history, island ecology system. Bird watchers, winter Texans,
Expats, what I mean is people who, there must be a lot of people who've moved out of town who would be very interested in the history of their families. Exploranzas,
Residents of North.
and tourists, include information, send information to all travel visitors, bureaus of states, and brochures and so
Would you read that last one, Mary?
Tourists include, send information to all travel or visitors, bureaus of the state, and put brochures in condos and hotels.
And then one of the things we had talked about last week when Betty and David and I were meeting together to plan this were things like coordinating with local organizations like the Boatmen around Deep Sea Roundup, which has a long history in the town. And so maybe during that month when Deep Sea Roundup is going on, then you would focus an exhibit on the fishing community and on the fishing tournaments. And then you could do the same thing, and I'm thinking of even coordinating with the history of UTMSI because they have some wonderful exhibits over there, and maybe we don't have to have every single exhibit right in our tiny museum. But how do we start overlapping, which is the purpose of this meeting? How do we start overlapping as organizations to share the history and sponsor the exhibits? Because we don't know what everybody has. And so having this kind of meeting is just such an asset, because then we become resources to each
And
other.
then we reach them with the walking tours and the bus tours that go out in the museum to all of the various spots in town